Okay, welcome to the eBook Revolution podcast, and I'm talking to Elizabeth Johnston. She's a writer, screenwriter, and one of my favourite words, an authorprenuer. And she runs a website called ownyourcreativity.com. And she does a whole bunch of really exciting and interesting things to help writers find their creativity. And we're going to talk to her this morning about taking charge of the creative process. And I've got her on the line right now. Good morning, or I should say good afternoon, Elizabeth.
Hi there, Jeff. It's nice to be here.
Great to have you. Tell me about your writing journey. How did you start out in this writing caper?
Well, it was a circuitous route. It was not a direct route. And I think that's true for many writers. I actually quit before I finished high school. And then I was working in the military for 7 years. And at that point, I decided either I go into the regular force because I was working full-time in the militia. So either I make a career of this or I go back to school. And so in between this time, I had actually finished my high school and got my diploma. And so I thought, instead of going into the regular army, I'm going to go to university and study something in the arts. So I was taking classes, in the first year, just figuring out what it is that I wanted to major in, taking a variety of different courses. And one of the courses that I really liked was humanities. And so it's like a literature kind of a course, but a different kind of a focus, not just a pure English literature focus. And I loved that class, and I loved the teachers that I had. And this one professor, he approached me and asked me if I'd ever thought of going into creative writing. And at that point, I hadn't even known that there was a program called creative writing. And even though I was a voracious reader and I wrote a lot, I just never really thought that there was an author on the other side of those pages. I was always so engrossed with the story that it didn't even really occur to me. It's like, oh yes, somebody actually sat down and wrote one word by one word. And anyway, so on the advice of my professor, I put together a portfolio and got accepted into the creative writing program, which was really hard to get into at that point. And so, that's how I kind of started in writing.
Yeah, creative writing courses can be a lot of value. I did one myself years ago, and they really do spark that awareness inside you that, hey, I can do this.
Yeah, exactly. And, some people say that creative writing courses are actually, the opposite, and that they make you kind of cookie cutter writers. But I didn't find that the case at all. I found that it just really opened up more doors of the imagination for me. And, I highly recommend, trying different things out and seeing what works.
It certainly opened some doors to you. You're also a screenwriter. Tell me a bit about that.
Yes. Well, I studied my master's in film and video with a screenwriting emphasis. And while I was doing my master's, I actually fell into teaching, because when you're doing your master's, they give you a tutorial leader position. And so I fell into teaching, and that's really what I did after university. And I also did manuscript evaluation. So I would be teaching screenwriting and other kinds of writing. And then I did a lot of manuscript evaluation and help people improve their scripts. Later on, I've had students go to different film festivals with their finished film that they made out of the script that I helped them with. So it's been really kind of satisfying to help people realize their creative writing dreams in that way, and their screenwriting dreams. But now I'm kind of circled back to making short films. So instead of just teaching, I've now added to my repertoire also making films, including business and industrial films and poetry films. I don't know if you've heard of poetry films, but I made one that was called Keepsake, and it's based on photographs of my grandmother's from the time that she was in a DP camp and after the Second World War, displaced persons camp. And I wrote a poem about that. And then I heard about video poems. And so I thought, what a great way to marry two interests of mine, creative writing and poetry and the film. So that's kind of what I'm engrossed in and doing more of.
Is there anywhere our listeners can have a look at that? Is it on YouTube or?
No, I haven't put it up on YouTube yet, but you can look at movingpoems.com and you can find dozens and hundreds of them on there. They're just they're so inspiring, and they run the gamut. Some of them are just people who are reading their own poems and then have a series of images on them. Others are actually filmmakers in their own right, and then they take a poem and create like a video around that poem, and then maybe somebody else is reading the words of the poem over it, or they get really kind of creative with putting the words on the screen too and melding that with images. It's really, really exciting.
That's movingpoem.com.
Yeah, movingpoems.com.
Tell me about Own Your Creativity. What's the story there? How did it come about?
That's my website and my online business. And I started it because, as I said, I was mainly teaching after I did my degrees in creative writing and humanities and film and video. Mainly that's what I was doing, was teaching. And a lot of people would come and take my classes because they wanted to do something different than the 9-to-5 grind. And they really needed to find something that would spark their energy. And, even though I was teaching in a field that was very creative, I also could succumb to that 9-to-5 grind. You have responsibilities, you have, lesson plans to do and marking and whatnot. And it's really easy in today's world, I think, to forget about play and forget about creativity. And so I was seeing this in myself. I was seeing it in people that were taking my classes. I was seeing it in my colleagues. So many people just didn't have energy at the end of the day. They just collapse in front of the television, eat some cheesies, and go to sleep and do it all over again the next day, So that existential angst. And I just thought that, life shouldn't be like that. I think that creativity is essential to our energy and our ability to get up and do things that we have to, but in a way that is filled with passion. So I decided that I was going to put together this website, Own Your Creativity, and just help people with easy ways of getting back some of that creativity in their everyday life, And people really need to take that seriously. And I think it's hard for a lot of people to take it seriously because we're just so driven, in terms of the bottom line. What's your return on investment? If I'm going to spend some time being creative, what's it going to get me in terms of dollars? Well, I really think that pursuing your creativity in whatever form, whether it's through dance or music or writing, that actually brings you dividends in terms of your health and your well-being. And if you don't have your health, you don't have anything, right? So I, really just am trying to help people get back that spark and their creativity in their life so that they can have a bit of balance, in their life.
We should talk about perhaps a creative return on investment, a CRI. That would be a good economic indicator.
Oh, yes. Definitely. I agree with you there. So
how can we regain that creative spark? What's the secret? I'm a big believer that we all have inside us something that we're creatively good at. It can be music, it can be writing. What's the best way to really spark that? What's the best thing they can do to just turbocharge that?
Yeah, well, a lot of people will think that once they reach a certain age that, it's too late for them to be a writer, or it's too late for them to explore that, or maybe they feel like they don't have the time or that they don't have the talent. So those kinds of objections come up and prevent them from exploring. And so I think that the first thing that you have to do is just have fun with it. Don't go into a writing class or, take something online and with the expectation that just add water and you're an instant, success, right? I think, people need to approach it more with curiosity and playfulness in the beginning, and just explore things and see what gets you excited. And I think that whenever you feel excited about something, that's a good barometer for your own, creative ROI, as you're saying. And I think that so that's the first thing, that you have to make the decision that you want to bring that creativity into your life and make room for it, because a lot of times we are so busy day-to-day lives that we think, we don't have any time. But if you really sit down and look at your schedule, and this is something that I recommend my students, look at what you do every day for a week. Just really be honest and shadow yourself every single day. What is it that I'm doing with my time? And then analyze it and say, okay, do I really need to be doing this? Or can I, cut down on this? Can I delegate some of this? Can I outsource some of these things that I'm doing in order to make room for my own creativity? So you have to make some decisions. I think that we can do anything that we want, but we can't do everything at the same time. So we have to make some decisions in our schedule. And I know that you sail, right, Jeff?
I do occasionally. I'm in a very fortunate position that I have a good friend that owns a boat, so I can have the fun without the expense.
Yeah, wow, that's perfect. But even doing something like that really recharges your batteries, and you can be creative in that way. But I think that, whatever gets you out and sees the world, allows you to see the world in a different way, in a fresh way, that can actually help you with your creativity, and see the world in a different way like that. And, being a writer also, it's important to have downtime. It's important to go for, quiet walks so that you can recharge your batteries. Again, it's not this really frenetic rush for, productivity. Okay, I'm going to sit down. I'm going to write the best novel ever. It's like there's a lot of fallow time. There's a lot of just, walking around and thinking about, things and then coming fresh to the page. So, there's that. And again, just approaching it with an idea to play and explore. And, when you do that, the writing ideas come much more readily. And, so I think that's really important, is to make time and also create a space for yourself. So for me, I guess the two pillars are time and space. So figure out what time you have. And if you don't have any time, then you doubly need to make some time for your creative self. And space. It's really important to have a dedicated space. Like Virginia Woolf said that we need to have a place of our own in order to write. And that doesn't mean that you have to have a special office. You could actually go to the cafe, at the appointed time that you want to write. But it's important that you keep those appointments with yourself. And it's important that you don't go to a cafe where you're going to run into your friends, because that's a really easy distraction. So, go someplace where people don't know you and that you're going to have some time to yourself. Or even the library you could go to,
That's quite right. I mean, one of the most famous cafe writers would be J.K. Rowling, who wrote the entire first Harry Potter sitting in a cafe. I remember exactly. Reading an interview with her, and she said that was the happiest time of her life, when nobody knew her, and she could just go there and work on this incredible story. So I agree with you 100%. And also, time management. Like you hit the nail right on the head there. People say they don't have time, and you're really quite correct. It's just auditing your time and what you do with the day. We all have 24 hours.
Yeah.
It's how you use them. Yeah. And I'm a big believer in people looking at their television usage, like time sync. So if people are watching 2 hours a night, that's a couple hundred hours a year. You imagine what you could write in a couple hundred hours instead of watching doom and gloom on the television.
I know that's such a good point. And, I actually did this time management exercise myself a few years ago, because I was actually teaching a course at the university, Skills for University Success. And part of it was managing your time. So before I gave them this exercise in the classroom, I thought I should check this out and see, what it's all about. And that's when I realized that we only have 168 hours in the week. 1/3 of that is work, 1/3 of that is sleeping, and then 1/3 is everything else. You have to jam everything else that's important in your life into those few hours. And what I realized when I did that exercise is that yes, I write, yes, I work, yes, I do all this stuff. I'm really productive, but I didn't have any downtime, and so I realized that was really important. So now I schedule it in.
No, the downtime is very important. And I'm a big believer that, as you said before, you have to have fun. But I think to write, you've got to live. You've got to, and to have something to write about, you have to live. You have to get out of your comfort zone. You have to do unusual stuff. And it doesn't have to be expensive or death-defying. You don't have to go abseiling or swimming with sharks to live life. But you do have to get out of your routine and do something unique that will perhaps make you reflect a bit different and give you something a bit unusual to write about. Now,
yes, exactly.
In terms of time management, what's your view on writer's block? Do you think that's a real thing or just a bit of a cop-out?
Writer's block. Yeah. Well, you know what? I don't actually believe in writer's block per se. I think that there's things that can stop us because we're not sure how to go on, in terms of the things that we're writing. Maybe we feel like we run out of ideas, but, a writer is a person who writes, even when they don't feel like writing. And that's why I think, giving yourself, a word count or a page count each time that you sit down to write is important. And, and I think that there's always ways to get yourself unstuck. Something like, picking a random writing prompt, flipping open a magazine and just, go with a word there and just start writing. How does that connect to the thing that you were just working on last, in terms of the character? Maybe, your character, imagine them going into a place that they wouldn't have necessarily gone to, naturally. So, there's all these ways that you can get yourself unstuck. And that's why I'm a big believer in writing prompts. And that's one of the things that I have on my site and people can sign up to get, writing prompts. And so, another thing is that, you could actually write about why you're resisting the writing. And this is something that in my writing classes, I'll give an idea for people to write, and I'll give them 5 minutes in the class. And then some people will just be, staring at the white paper. And I say, no, don't stare at the white paper. Write something on it, and then you break that barrier, that fear of like, what am I going to write about? And you can just write, I don't like this topic. And write why you don't like that topic, or write the opposite, So you have to take control. Another thing that I suggest is, talking to one of the characters that you have in one of your stories and ask them for advice. Where do they think the story needs to go? So, all these playful ways of getting through, so-called writer's block.
I think a lot of new writers suffer from perfection paralysis as well. Like,
oh, yes.
They'll get to the first sentence and then they'll go back and start grammatically perfecting it. And then even worse, if they're writing on a computer, maybe that looks better with a different font. And before you know it, you've written nothing. I'm a big believer in free writing.
Yes, so am I.
Everything I write longhand. And I'll just get it out there, and then I'll edit when I get it into the computer. But new writers need to understand, you just got to get it out of your brain onto the page, and that's the first step.
Oh, yeah, I agree with you 100%. And that's the other thing I say when I give them timed writings in the classroom, and I say that it doesn't, don't stop and correct your grammar, spelling, and put in extra punctuation. Just keep the pen moving, and that, and you'll be amazed at what comes up when you let it, when you are prematurely editing, and that actually stems the flow of your creativity.
Exactly.
And like you, I definitely believe that you need to write the full story, even if it's, completely imperfect, and it's not going to be perfect the first time around. It's not perfect for any writer.
So you're talking about your writing prompts before, so people can sign up to your free prompt program on. I just want to make sure I got your address correct. That's ownyourcreativity.com.
Yeah, it's ownyourcreativity.com/free writing prompts.
Fantastic. And another thing you do on ownyourcreativity.com is life writing courses. I'm just fascinated about this. Could you tell me a bit more about that?
Yes, I teach what I call life writing courses. And I started doing this about 3 or 4 years ago. I've been teaching writing for over 20 years, but a few years ago I decided that I really wanted to work with senior citizens. And I don't know why I just, got this into my head that I wanted to do that. And so I went around to, different residences and eventually, because I had, told people that I was interested and friends, were saying, oh yeah, check this out or check that out. And then eventually in my inbox, an invitation to teach at a seniors community center came. And I created this course called Life Writing because some people don't necessarily want to write their memoirs. Some people just want to write about their life, like nonfiction. So instead of just saying memoir writing and exclude people who maybe wanted to explore other aspects. So I just call it this general title, Life Writing. And some people are actually writing memoirs. Other people just want to write little vignettes or slices of life or whatnot. But I really love teaching that class because most of the people are retired, and so they're exploring this for a number of reasons. Some take the class because they want to stave off dementia, and they've heard that it's good to exercise the brain. So, they come and share their stories. Others are actually wanting to write a legacy memoir, so they want to leave something behind for their kids and grandkids and future generations. And other people are just looking to write nonfiction, as I said. But they're so appreciative. And it really validated for me my expertise. I've always enjoyed what I do, but because, you get almost this immediate feedback, and they're not shy to say that worked really well. I really like that. Let's do more of this. And you get this wonderful back and forth energy that you don't always get in credit courses. Oftentimes they're worried about their grades and it kind of interferes with them just enjoying what they're doing. And so I found that working with this age group is really quite rewarding, and not to mention that the stories that they tell and the courage and the adversity that they have overcome, it's so inspiring. And I think, well, if people can go through this and still be smiling and still see the good in, sometimes really terrible events that they've gone through, well, it just puts everything into perspective. And so I love teaching that class.
It sounds wonderful. Have any of your students gone on to publish on Kindle or in hard copy?
Not yet. But I do have several students who are working on their final draft of their book, and I'm giving a series of workshops this summer in Montreal, and one of them is going to be about publishing. So I'm going to be talking about traditional and non-traditional routes of publishing. So it's going to be exciting to see those ones come to fruition.
I had a client last year. She's an 80-year-old woman from Queensland, and she wrote her first book, and we got that published on Kindle. And
oh my goodness,
it was just a wonderful experience. She wrote a life story, and her life story was growing up in 1940s and 50s rural Queensland. And for our listeners outside of Australia, Western Queensland's a bit like Texas. It's
really
hot, arid, And it was just a life of poverty and moving from sheep station to sheep station. And it was just, when I got the manuscript to first read it, I thought, oh, this will be boring. And I read the whole thing in like 2 hours. It was wonderful. And to get through that whole process, her first book, her lifelong dream to write a book and get it published. And that's what we did. And it's selling on Amazon with no marketing or promotion. It's
oh my goodness,
quite astounding.
Wow.
So yeah, definitely drive your students there, and students can teach us a lot. You're a teacher, but what have your students given you? What's your takeout from your life writing courses?
Well, like as I was saying before, I really feel that their feedback and their participation and their appreciation of what I do has allowed me to, I guess, reframe my own expertise, and because oftentimes I think we're our own worst critic. I'm sure that you've heard that before. And teaching this class, I realized that I don't need to be so critical of like myself, because I am doing a really good job, and just to take that confidence and move forward with, developing my own philosophy, because I do have a method, and, realizing that the things that I was doing with them really work. And it allowed me to like, okay, so what is it that I'm doing that is working so well? So I'm working on a book now actually about writing, and I guess that it's afforded me that opportunity to step back and reassess, my expertise and develop my own philosophy.
You've certainly given a lot to people that want to take ownership of their creativity and become writers. Anybody that follows my blog or podcast will know that's exactly close to my heart as well. How can our listeners take their creativity to the next level?
Well, I think that once you figure out your time and place that, for writing, that it's important to keep track of your progress and to have small goals of what you'd like to achieve and keep fueling your passion. And I suggest joining a community of some type, because writing is a conversation. Even though it's a solitary act, it is actually meant for people to read it and to get something out of it and think about things, and then people sit around and saying, oh, did you read that book? And it develops into a discussion with other people. And so I think that it's important for new writers to be part of a community, or they can organize a little writers group. But as a young writer, or a new writer, I should say, I think it's important that you recognize that feedback is good, but that you need different kinds of feedback at different stages of your writing. So if you have something that's just hot off the press and you haven't really edited it, or, haven't really worked with it a lot, really what you need then is people to give you supportive feedback, say, oh yes, that's an interesting idea. Definitely go forward with it. You don't want people to, think that, it's ready for publication and then just slash, everything and, marks everywhere, because then that can really discourage you. So I think it's important that you when you have a community of writers that you really ask for what you need at the moment, and so if it's just a story in progress and it's not even finished, you don't want to have kind of final edit comments on it, right? So you have to be aware of what stage you are at, and and ask the types of comments that are going to help you grow and move on and continue to fuel your passion. So I think that's really important. And you could volunteer at a writing festival. You could meet other people who have your same passion as well. So I think that's, one thing is that once you've decided that you're going to write, you have your time and your space, and then you start gathering around you your community, your tribe that are going to help you move forward.
You've got some great programs coming up on yourcreativity.com. Would you like to talk a bit about them?
Yeah, thanks. So I'm doing 3 different workshops this summer. One of them is just for writing. So writing your book, how to put your book together, what's the structure, how to get the outline together, how to figure out your schedule, based on your unique priorities. And so we go through the whole day to help you write your book. And then the second one is about editing. So once you've completed the work, what are the different levels of writing that you need to know about, different levels of editing, and how to employ them. And then the last one is, as I said, about publishing. And so we're going to be looking at traditional and non-traditional types of publishing, as well as agents and whether we need one or how to find them and that sort of thing.
So people can just have a look on www.ownyourcreativity.com and get straight to those programs.
Exactly.
Well, Elizabeth, thank you for your time this morning on the podcast. It's been a thrill talking to you, and it's given my creativity a bit of a spark as well.
That's great. Thank you. It's been a pleasure talking to you, Jeff.
Pleasure talking to you. Again, that's, we'll get the URL right, www.ownyourcreativity.com. And we've been talking to Elizabeth Johnston. You've been listening to the eBook Revolution, episode 4, and we've been speaking to Elizabeth Johnston from Own Your Creativity. I hope you've got a lot out of that, and it will help launch your creativity as well. Remember, you can find out more about Elizabeth's programs from www.ownyourcreativity.com. Now, if you'd like to get the podcast notes for this show, just go to our website, www.madhousemedia.com.au/podcast. Have a look for episode 4. That's it for this show. I'm Jeff Hughes, and you've been listening to the eBook Revolution.